Okay, good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to Equine Episode Examination, where today we'll be talking about last weekend's new episode, Forever Philly. So, if it's your first time joining us, hi. We record this usually on Tuesdays at 5 p.m., but due to some scheduling conflicts, we had to move it back to today, Wednesday, but normally we record these on Tuesdays, so if you're watching a recording on this and want to come and participate in the episode discussions, you can stop on by next Tuesday at 5 p.m. when we'll be discussing this weekend's episode. Pretty much what we do is we're just going to, give our thoughts on last weekend's episode, Forever Philly, and, what everyone's opinions on it, kind of see if anyone has any different thoughts or anything else they can bring to the table. Got some people here in the call, and we got people in the chat, so if you want to come and chat along, you have to head on to CinemaQuestria.com and go to the stream page there, and you can join in the chat and tell us what your opinions of the episode are. We'll kind of start a little bit broader and work into more specific parts of the episode as we go in. Anyway, I'm Rain Shadow, and there's a few other people here in the call with me. If they want to introduce themselves.
Hey, it's Mr. Ben. How's it going, everyone?
This is Jay Smith.
And that's it. So,
Yeah, I see him in the chat room, but he's not in the call. Unfortunately, if you see him at the Shadow Man, just give him a wave and tell him he's a limey Brit, and we love him anyway.
Yeah, I think he had a long day at work today, so he's probably asleep by now.
Has his prerogative.
Sleep before we even begin. It's a record.
So, what were everyone's initial thoughts on Forever Philly?
It was a decent episode, but it really wasn't the best that we had. I'm actually going to be relaying this in both, not just as mine, but also part of Twilight is Magic, because he's not in this chat room today. He's unfortunately unable to join us because of personal reasons, mainly regarding school. But so anyway, mainly this is more from Tim, but the ones that he said was that he felt that this week's episode was kind of what it was lighter, and not so much in the lighthearted way, but more like lighter in terms of actual content. The plot was a lot simpler. It actually felt more generic than anything like specifically tailored to pony, or specifically put like a pony spin on it. A lot of it reminded him of like Gift of the Mod Pie, and it reminded me mainly of Brotherhood Social a lot, in regards to basically being kind of like the script basically felt rather recycled here, because we had an older sibling of a Cutie Mark Crusader feeling disconnected from the Crusader herself. And then the older sibling doing something rather outlandish in a desperate bid to recapture the little sister's affection, only for this to backfire and make things worse. I mean, the plot is fitting enough for Rarity as a character. It doesn't feel alien or unfitting or out of place, but it just feels very, obvious. It just feels kind of generic. And it also felt really slower than the usual pacing. This really felt more of like a season 1 episode than anything that we've been through. This really felt more of like an 11-minute plot stretched out to 22 minutes than anything else.
See, I'd have to disagree with that. I really liked the episode. I think it's quite a bit different from Brotherhood Social, with this one more dealing with Sweetie Belle growing up and growing older, and sort of growing out of older things that they used to do, with the old adage of, as siblings can grow older, a lot of times they can grow apart for different reasons. And this episode kind of tackled that, whereas Brotherhood Social was really nothing to do with age. It just had a lot to do with sibling competition, in terms of Big Mac felt a lot more distant from his sister there, not because she was growing up or the stuff they used to do where they're younger, they just didn't want to do it anymore, but just more because she wound up bonding more with Applejack and her other sister, and Big Mac sort of felt left out about that. So I think there's enough kind of difference between those two episodes where it isn't really repetitive, and it's tackling a different, like a totally different kind of subject and a totally different kind of thing that siblings might be going through. And really, I don't really agree with it seeming like it doesn't have a pony spin on it. I don't really know what is meant by that. But I mean, Pony has always taken very
Basically, meaning you
relatable
could take
stories, and
Basically, you could take this plot in any setting and just apply it to any other show, and you could still have the same.
but aren't
moral
most
and same
episodes
story.
of the show like that? Especially slice of life episodes. I mean,
suppose.
it's. I mean, Pony is always. I mean, yeah, there's very Pony action oriented episodes.
I'm only just relaying his. Views. I can't really.
Yeah, I know. I kind of wish he was here.
These views do not reflect. These views do not reflect the viewpoint of Mr. Ben.
Yeah, but it's just like, for me, it's just like I can understand, like, yeah, there's a lot of episodes where, yeah, they're very Pony specific, but really most plots of this show, it's not like them being ponies has any huge effect on the plot. I mean, a lot of the plots, especially the slice of life ones and very character specific episodes, are you know, could be code standard, or you know, any show could really do it, but I mean, it's really in terms of the execution of those plots versus it being something specifically for Pony, I guess. I guess I kind of disagree with that. I mean, it's not like this is the best episode ever or anything either. I'm not saying that, but I thought it was, you know, kind of a really relatable one, and it was a topic that it kind of, the show hasn't hit on, at least specifically this one yet. And yeah, I kind of agree with someone, I lost track of the chat there, but someone said it was kind of like a continuation, or like the opposite of Sisterhood of Social, where now Rarity's kind of a little too trying to get a little too involved in the wrong ways with Sweetie Belle, which is kind of funny in that aspect.
I mean, it still delivered on some good stuff. I mean, there was lots of great Rarity, and the ending is pleasant. But I mean, it's overall a pleasant episode. It's just not the best, really. I mean, like both me and Tim agree that the episode isn't bad. It just wasn't really quite up to the same quality as the other season 7 episodes, at least up to this point. It just feels more drawn out and slower paced than what we've been used to.
I guess. I mean, I don't really agree with that. I don't think this is the best episode of the season either. But I'm not going to really use that against the episode either. Yeah. So, well, let's go ahead. Let's dive in specifically to the story and the writing of the episode. Then, this episode was written by Mike and Will Fox, the Fox brothers, who did a few episodes from last season, and I should have pulled up the drive listing. I know that they did The Gift of the Maud Pie, which is fitting, being what Mr. Ben and Tim had said at the beginning there about kind of similar to that episode. I mean, I can kind of agree, because I remember this is one thing I was thinking of and kind of writing down after the episode, after we watched the episode, where they do definitely see, the Fox brothers definitely do seem to have a sort of writing style that has been fairly consistent through their episodes. So their episodes are Gift of the Maud Pie, Applejack's Day Off, and PPOV. And I would definitely agree with what Mr. Ben and Tim said about them being a little bit slower paced episodes, very hard slice of life episodes. And yeah, in a lot of ways feels like an earlier season 1 or season 2 episode there. And I think that's something, especially with Gift of the Maud Pie, and especially Applejack's Day Off, which had a very kind of similar, I think, kind of style and pace to this episode had. Looking back, I mean, you can really tell there's a lot of writers where they'll have a plethora of different styles of episodes, but I think the Fox brothers have a really set kind of style and pace that they write their episodes on, and I think that is very evident in this one.
Yeah, Tim basically said the same thing. The episode felt rather symptomatic. He didn't say that it was like, of a bad thing. He just said that it felt very similar to the other episodes that they've written for the show.
Yeah.
Not that was a bad thing.
Yeah, they have a certain kind of style that's very much them that they've shown over their episodes. Yeah. I guess one of the things that, I mean, I've said this about the past couple episodes, and it very much continues into this one, is I again just really love the continuity that they've been having in pretty much every episode this season. Really good use of it. Right from the beginning, we get to see Sassy Saddles again, who we haven't seen since Canterlot Boutique back in season 5. Yeah, season 5. So it was nice kind of seeing her again at the beginning there. and then kind of using the whole episode's kind of plot revolving around how busy Rarity has been with opening up all these different locations and running all these new shops, as well as Sweetie Belle being very busy with stuff with the CMC, and kind of using that as a catalyst as to why Rarity feels like they haven't been spending enough time together and are kind of growing apart. It was really nice to see Rarity as well, very in control of her business ventures. She seems really on top of everything, and very good managerial kind of attitude that she had, keeping her locations stocked and up to date and whatnot. It was nice to see kind of that from her character, because I think that's kind of what she's been always a kind of a very good business pony in that respect with her work. And it was nice seeing that in the beginning of the episode.
This is really just more my opinions on this, but and don't get me wrong, I love seeing more Rarity. I especially love seeing interactions with Rarity and Sweetie Belle, because we just simply don't get enough interactions between the siblings characters, in my opinion. But I think this episode probably could have been better if this particular episode was really more a unique story, focusing more almost exclusively on Sweetie Belle. If it was just solely focused on her and may have had the chance to give her a little bit more depth, like she could figure out on her own that she's becoming too old for some really favorite things that she used to do, and eventually switching to new stuff, learning that there's nothing wrong with growing up and trying different things. I also have to admit that another part of my a small minor, and this is just a minor complaint that I have, is that I do appreciate the moral that they're going for, and I found it. I'm totally understand where Sweetie's coming from, but she did kind of lash out at Rarity for not understanding her, but she didn't do really anything to actually communicate to this. And she basically, as if she was expecting Rarity to just simply read her mind. Now if she had actually had, expressed herself, earlier, and this probably would have gone down a little bit better. But then again, I mean, she is still just, a young kid. I mean, so she probably doesn't have that big. I want to say that she doesn't have that grasp of responsibility, but then again, I mean, she does have her cutie mark. She's been helping out the other, Crusaders in their specific task. But I don't know. It just seems kind of.
It seemed like it was kind of realistic to me, though. I mean, especially with siblings and of that age and age difference, it's not. There's not always that very good two-way street of communication as to what issues are, and kind of just, especially when it kind of you're not like Sweetie Belle throughout the entire episode is trying to kind of humor her sister, but it just kind of reaches a breaking point where like all that stuff getting bottled up, and it eventually just kind of comes out in one big lash of just you have no idea who I am anymore.
I also have to admit that as at least in terms of the sibling issue, I really can't speak too much on that specific area, and that's only because I'm an only child. I've been an only child for ever since I was born, so I've never really had any actual siblings. But then again, there has been points where my dad has acted more like my brother than my actual dad, so I did have some specific issues with that, especially in regards to the communication area. But that's a whole completely different can of worms, and I'm not going to get into that.
One thing I did like about this episode is its focus on the CMC helping other ponies with their cutie marks again, which is something we haven't seen since On Your Marks at the beginning of last season. And the best thing, it wasn't just kind of a short focus either. It wasn't like the main focus of the episode, but it wasn't just like a little thing that they had at the beginning of the episode to get the episode started, and then they kind of dropped it. It was sort of evolved into the episode's B plot, and in the end, really tied directly into the A plot. Which again this is another episode with a really clear A and B plot this season. And I just really liked how those two plots really tied together incredibly well in the end. So you have the problem with the dog, with Ripley. And it was kind of having the problem with Ripley was sort of the same exact problem that Rarity and Sweetie Belle were having. And I liked how in the end that solving the Ripley's problem with Zipperwill was also helped solve Rarity and Sweetie Belle's problem, and help them realize sort of what had happened in terms of growing older and growing out of certain things. I guess really liked that A and B plot, and then in the end that realization that the whole problem with Ripley was the same exact problem that Sweetie Belle's having, is that he's grown up and he's just not into those same things anymore. And that's again more continuity there with bringing back Zipperwill again as well as Ripley. It's not really a character I thought we'd ever see again. She first appeared in FILLY Vanilli, which is making me really regret that we never got to watch that episode here before the season began, because that's two FILLY Vanilli related things that we've gotten this season already. But she also got the dog Ripley from that episode originally as well. So that's when she first got the dog in that episode. So it's just really good continuity from Joanna Christine, as well as Mike and Will Fox for it. It's been like that way the entire season so far, just kind of bringing back a lot of characters. Some of them even like this one, more kind of obscure, that you wouldn't really expect to come back in any certain way.
I love their wall of photographs, because it not only does because you see Cheerly and Big Mac, you see Babs, you see Pipsqueak, you see Tender Taps, you even get to see Gabby in there as well.
Yep, Gabby's in there. You got Diamond Tiara was in there.
Yeah.
As well, Pip, Featherweight. So pretty much all of the ponies that the CMC have helped in some way, they have on the wall there, which is a nice visual continuity thing. Yep. That's when he got her. He was a puppy in that episode. So again, just showing some time elapsing here. And that's another point I read. Just kind of interesting seeing time passing in the series here, but in terms of Ripley and Sweetie Belle maturing since FILLY Vanilli there. One second, I'll be right back.
We've also had it's just really nice to see that we get just a bunch of continuity as well, like Rain was saying. Double duty for Tabitha, though, because she not only just voiced Rarity, but she also raised Zipperwill as well. Then we also had some continuity, not just with the characters, but also with the outfits, that when Rarity and Sweetie Belle were getting their photos taken, you could see Pinkie Pie's chicken costume in there. During the photo shoot, you also saw the butterfly wings that Rarity received for the Best Young Flyers competition all the way back from season 1, just kind of showing up out of nowhere. And then we got the Return of the Puppeteer for the show of the foals in the park as well.
Or at least we just see some mud as he's sticking through the curtain.
Yeah, it's another little bit of character returning from season 4 there. With that was from Inspiration Manifestation, so. It was interesting looking at the episode, and it was a nice kind of visual choice with the storyboarding and animation of the episode, where throughout the entire part where Rarity and Sweetie Belle are trying to hang out there and doing all these things that Sweetie Belle doesn't really want to do anymore. All the other fillies in all of those scenes don't have any cutie marks, so it's kind of like a little subtle indication of the difference between sort of Sweetie Belle then and now, and they're doing these things with all these fillies that still don't have their cutie marks here. kind of signifying how much sort of younger they are in that aspect. So yeah, because overall this episode was about, growing up and how kids and their interests change as they grow. It's kind of interesting. It's another episode whose plot and moral might speak more to the parents watching than the kids. But it did a good job about kind of backing that up with the B plot with Ripley with the dog, which kids can probably relate to more, especially if they've had a pet in the past, and sort of seeing how your dog or cat might not be as active or be interested in different things as they grow up as well. So I've seen a couple episodes more recently in the show where the plot might speak more to the parents watching than kids watching. Yeah, I think overall, it was just kind of a very. I found the ending to be fairly touching and relatable in terms of the ending and the overall lesson of the episode as well. And again, I just like seeing more kind of episodes in the show like this, which are not just kind of throwing continuity at you for the sake of it, but are sort of building on the show itself and building on the characters and building on past episodes and using that kind of continuity. Anything else for the story or the writing that anyone wants to bring up before we move on?
No, just that the B plot seemed to be very declarative of the A plot, just basically repeating it only in a slightly more declarative stance. Not that there's anything wrong with that, just...
Mm-hmm. So we can go on to the character and the characterization, characters and characterization for the episode. What does everyone think about the characterization of it?
Well, it is kind of interesting. It's kind of, I think we've already covered this one, but I find it very ironic that as of the end of Sisterhood Social, Sweetie Belle just wasn't too into the whole mature activities that Rarity wanted to go to with her, but But now here it is, and Rarity's trying to do all this childish stuff with her, and Sweetie Belle's just having none of it.
And I did like that sort of opposite kind of. I don't even know what to say. How it really was like the opposite of sister of Social in that aspect, where now Sweetie Belle is saying, no, I'd rather do all these other things, or I'd rather eat a salad or something like that. Again, just showing that character growth and change, but also kind of just, if you've seen Sisterhood of Social, it's just kind of a little funny as well. It was great seeing the CMC continuing to kind of grow up and take on additional responsibilities and subtly change as well. It was nice seeing them pretty much full into their sort of cutie mark help business or whatever that they're doing now, helping other fillies with their cutie marks and being very successful from it, and we get to see all their progress on the wall, like we mentioned earlier.
I also find it hilarious that their solution for moving a gigantic stone slab down a mountain is just a clear violation of common sense.
They went the whole Breath of the Wild method.
Right?
Just using it down like a freaking sled.
If it works.
Hey, if it's stupid and it works, it ain't stupid, right?
Yeah. I think that's how it goes.
It might not be stupid, but it is certainly still still a violation of common sense.
One thing that was interesting in regards to the CMC plot of this episode was Sweetie Belle was seemingly taking a little bit more of like a leadership role of the group, it seemed. That's something I've seen in the past with them, but it was evident in this episode as well. She definitely, for a long time now, she's definitely been the most sort of level-headed, voice of reason kind of one of the group, I think. And I think that kind of naturally sort of puts her into that sort of position there as well.
What was it that I was trying to think of here? I'm looking it up right now, but I'm trying to figure out what it was. Hang on. It's basically something kind of like it's called the Freudian trio, and it involves the id, the ego, and the superego. And basically, what it is here. Let me just look it up. Hang on. Okay, so basically, for the longest time, Apple Bloom was basically seen to be as the leader of the group because she tends to serve as the balance between her two friends. Scootaloo is the id because she's generally impulsive, daring, and hot-headed, and she's often the source of the trio's more dangerous and outlandish schemes. But Sweetie Belle tends to be more of the superego in that she may be a little bit ditzier than the other two, but she's also the one to serve as the one to call their crazy plans into question, and kind of is the one to be more of the meta member of the other three. Or I should say the other two. No, Mr. Ben can't fucking count.
Yeah, I mean, definitely. She's always kind of been the one that is, in multiple episodes, calling the other two's plans into question and pointing out flaws with them.
But yeah, for those of you who aren't really aware of what I'm talking about, like the id, ego, and superego being the Freudian trio, it's basically the structural motto of the psyche. The id is the set of uncoordinated instinctual treads. The superego is the critical and moralizing role. The ego is rather the organized, realistic part that mediates between the desires of the id and the critical, moralizing superego. The superego is the one that stops you from doing certain things that your id may drive you to do. So it's basically a balance between all three of these, essentially. So.
Yeah, and there's that Rated Dog, and then of course in Bab's Seed, she was the one that always wanted them to just go tell Applejack about it. Yeah, Yeah, welcome to psychology examination here. It's interesting. I don't know. I mean, it fits really well as well into the characters, I think. It was funny seeing Rarity sort of laughing off the idea of the CMC having clients, but then kind of genuinely is impressed when she sees the wall of all the ponies that they've helped, sort of realizing that they have been pretty successful in what they've been doing.
I kind of got the feeling that Rarity still kind of thought of it more as like more of a game to her.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Because she was basically a little dismissive at first. She's like, clients, how cute, and she's kind of just patting her sister on the head.
And kind of playing back to her thinking that they're just like very little fillies again. So it's sort of like she was kind of looking at it as them opening up a lemonade stand or something like that, and calling their customers clients and stuff. Oh, it's so cute and stuff.
Giving out free mints.
Yeah. It was nice in the episode, I think. At least I enjoyed it. That in the end, sort of, Rarity kind of had obviously sort of an overreaction to it and was very angry with Sweetie Belle, but she never really. I thought they were kind of going to go have some yelling fight or something, but she didn't do that. She was just able to kind of realize what she did wrong and sort of what the issue was without angrily confronting Sweetie Belle about it. When she sees Sweetie Belle solving the issue with Ripley and them there, so it was kind of a nice little bit of her coming to that realization herself, without sort of being told that she's wrong. I guess I like it when characters kind of realize flaws and faults on their own, or viewing other people or something like that, rather than someone saying, no, you're wrong. I think it's better in terms of writing. Oh, you're talking about Trouble Shoes there, Radio Dog, I believe. And the ending, I just really liked kind of the ending, and when eventually Rarity and Sweetie Belle do talk in the end there, and sort of have that discussion. It's kind of a very touching thing, with Rarity saying that she just enjoyed doing all those things when they were younger so much, and never realized that those times were kind of their last times doing it, because she enjoyed spending all those times with her sister, and it was just kind of a touching moment in itself, and also kind of a touching moment just in terms of where we know they've come from in the series since Sisterhood Social. And that realization that her sister is kind of growing up, and that worry that Rarity has about that, and what that means for their relationship. Now my favorite DM was the J. Jonah Jameson costume that Sweetie Belle had on. At least that's what it looked like to me. Generic business pony costume.
Pictures of Spider Cult.
Oh yes, cue the Scootaloo chicken jokes.
That's a good chicken when she's patting, now Wolf's patting her. Good school.
It was also nice to have an episode, and this is something that's not so much recent episodes, but earlier episodes in the series. It's just nice that episodes at least now have a little more focus in the characters. So pretty much here in this episode, we have the CMC and Rarity, and that's pretty much the focus. They never tried to really bring in any of the they don't try to shoehorn Twilight in or bring in Pinkie Pie or any of the other main six for any reason. They at least allow the episode to stay focused on sort of what the stories, the A and B plot stories are, without kind of meandering and getting stuck on that. It did provide a lot of focus on Rarity and Sweetie Belle and their relationships, as well as the CMC and sort of what they're doing now, without getting caught up on trying to throw too many other unnecessary characters into the mix. And that's something we've discussed here a lot before in terms of earlier episodes of the show in Season 1, Season 2. Of course, they would always have Twilight in it, especially in Season 1, just because of the nature of friendship letters. And a lot of back then would try and get as most or all of the main six in, whether or not they were really required for the episode's story. So that's something that it hasn't really been a problem for a while now, and it's always good to just have that tight focus character-wise on the characters you're trying to develop in the episode. Of course, going back to the last really CMC episode last season with On Your Marks, where there was none of the main six in it, which was interesting because we don't really have that, and never had that in this series before. Yeah, I think this episode really did, like Dark said, I think the episode did the A and B plot really well. Like, if we can use an example of another episode of the A and B plot this season would be All Bottled Up. And while I spoke positively on that A and B plot, then it's a little bit different than that episode and this episode, because the A and B plot there, the B plot wasn't really there to serve the A plot story directly. It was sort of more just it was just kind of there to contrast the friendships of the main six and Trixie and Starlight in the episode. This one's a lot closer to the season 6 premiere, where we have the A and B plot of Flurry Heart and Starlight in the season 6 premiere that kind of come together in the end. And I think this episode does that and does it really well. I'm trying to think of other examples of the A and B plot that have been done, but really, this is probably the best example of that, I would think, and the best done in the show of an A and B plot, just because of how well they tie it together and how much that B plot directly affected the A plot. It isn't just like some shows where they have an A and B plot just there to fit more story in. I mean, it really was one story that came together in the end there. See, give me one second. This YouTube's having some issues here. Let me just restart the stream to try and solve that.
Don't you just hate that when it happens?
It's not that bad, but it keeps coming back. So let me just see if this works. Okay, YouTube is just having some issues today. Okay, well, it should be coming back up. Yeah, like Radio Dog said, Flurry of Emotions was another episode this season that had an A and B plot to it. Again, a little bit different because it wasn't really two plots that I guess they sort of came together in the end in that. but it was kind of more just like showing how the new parents in that episode sort of were reacting to not being around their child anymore, rather than serving to really service the A plot in the end or anything. It was just kind of gave context and a little bit more character for them, but it wasn't really story wise the B plot servicing the A plot. Yeah. Anything else for characterization then, before we move on? Go to voice acting is next. Anything with the voice acting that stood out for anyone that they want to mention?
I mentioned this earlier, but Tabitha St. Germain here was pulling double duty as both Zipper, Will, and Rarity.
Mm-hmm. I love that sort of, it's kind of a Hispanic, I guess, accent that she has for Zipper Will. Very Latino kind of accent. I really like it though. It's ridiculously cute. It's funny though, because anything with the CMC anymore, it's always like you go back and you listen to their voices, back in the earlier seasons and now, and it's something you always notice when you're watching a new episode. But when you actually go back and compare it and just see, obviously, how much their voice actors' voices have changed since then, it's funny. But it works even better in this episode simply because the episode is so focused on the CMC, specifically Sweetie Belle, sort of getting older and maturing and growing up. So it kind of seems really fitting to have her have a little bit like deeper sounding voice now. And yep, just one new voice actor for Chip Cutter here. No, excuse me. No, Graham isn't a new voice actor. I'm thinking of another episode. No, Graham is is Pip's voice actor. Yeah, and of course, you can't escape from Starlight with Kelly Sheridan reprising her voice there as Sassy Saddles. Just can't. Yeah, I forgot Graham was Pip's voice actor. So. And yeah, of course you can't deny, Tabitha's voice acting as Rarity is just, that's a given.
They do say that she is basically the female Mel Blanc of the modern day, so.
So yeah, how about the humor of the episode? What does everyone have to think about the episode's humor?
Not really that much in this particular episode. I mean, we have Scootaloo trying to show Ripley how to catch the ball by demonstrating it herself, and then we've mentioned, Apple Bloom actually petting her on the head, saying "Good Scootaloo," as she was an actual dog. We have Rarity arriving at the CNC clubhouse and declaring, "I'm so excited I could faint." You don't happen to have a fainting couch around, do you? And then, of course, we had the photo shoot with the silly costumes that they had. We had Little Bo Peep and the Lamb. We had Chicken and an Egg, Butterfly and a Caterpillar, Frog and a Tadpole, and Flower and a Seed. And at each shoot, I mean, Rarity's just hamming it up as usual. Love the camera, hate the camera, and Sweetie Belle's just sitting there like, kill me now.
Sweetie, you hated the camera in all the shots. There's a lot of really good, kind of like Sweetie Belle lines that all the lines that were kind of showing her how her interests has changed and how she's matured. Sort of like, I guess I prefer more black box experimental theater, which is hilarious as a Sweetie Belle line on its own. But it's also kind of a nice little character building continuity one, because we know how from past episodes how big her interest is into like show tunes and theater and singing as well. So it was a funny line, but it really fit well with her character and what her interests growing up might be. And then, yeah, the fucking Sunday. I don't even think that's enough for a Philly. It's a thimble size of ice cream.
Yeah, reminds me of that joke on The Simpsons. I want to give me a free ice cream sundae, just like the one on the side gives up that little Eddie Petty sundae. Eat it and get out.
Rarity sure does love her ice cream, doesn't she? At the end there, let's get that huge ass thing of.
So big they gotta share just one of those. But then again, maybe for Rarity, one isn't it. Half of one isn't enough. She needs one first.
I just remember seeing, that on the stream, and I was saying in the chat, like, now that's what I call a Sunday. Also kind of reminds me vaguely of Cold Stone, because, I mean, if you actually order a medium, that's pretty much about roughly the size that they're going to give you.
Yeah. Man, now I'm getting hungry for ice cream.
And that's a medium, too. Imagine if you go and order a large.
I have a Baskin Robbins down the street. I might have to pay them a visit tonight.
That's funny. I actually have a Baskin Robbins myself that's actually closer to me than the Cold Stone.
Yeah, I have some Cold Stones near me, but they're a little bit further drive.
Cold Stone's the closest one to me. So.
Oh, lucky you.
It's also bloody expensive, but it's damn worth it.
Oh,
too.
yeah, it's
but
worth
anyway,
it. It's worth it.
Yeah.
This episode is totally not brought to you by Cold Stone.
Funny thing is, though, that really tiny ice cream or the Philly's supposed to be the size of ants to really enjoy that.
It reminds me of a Junior Frosty at Wendy's. Those things are, like, almost ridiculously comically small. On the same line of that, and that same scene, and kind of on the same line as the experimental theater voice, I really like the delivery of the when Sweetie Belle's there, and she's just like, I was thinking something more like a salad. And so, because it again, is showing that kind of growth for her as a character, but the delivery of it was really nice as well. All I could think of when in that scene was freaking Weenie Hut Jr. from SpongeBob. Rarity, where are you taking us? Weenie Hut Jr.? In terms of the animation in it, we already kind of talked about all the photos on the wall of the CMC's clubhouse, and I really liked all of those there, and sort of all the continuity they have up there between all the ponies we had. They had, I guess one of the ones I don't think we mentioned was did have bulk biceps up there as well, of course, from the last episode last season, where they helped him in that episode, as well as Tender Taps was up there. I found the Big Mac and Cheerily one kind of funny. Like, obviously, they still ship. They must still ship them.
I'm not gonna say anything. Not gonna say anything.
I also really liked kind of a funny animation thing. Zipper Will's face when she's sort of playing with the dog, like right at the screen, like, "Who's a good puppy? Who's a good puppy?" It's just like the most ridiculously kind of cute, like, face splattered up against the TV you could have. And yeah, all the posing scenes with Sweetie Belle Murray. I like how she keeps the flower costume on, and when she's like spying on Sweetie Belle in that last scene, she's just hiding in the bushes like flower. No one notices her because it just looks like a flower in the bushes. Freaking Solid Snake levels of stealth there.
What was the funny thing is that I really love the fact that you could clearly see her in the background, and it's not so much that you could see like her, sticking out like a sore thumb, but it's like, okay, you have this flower that's clearly like 10 times the size of the other flowers, with Rarity's face just sticking out like a big fucking bullseye in the dead center. And it wouldn't be so bad if she was like further in the background, but she's like 2 feet away from Sweetie Belle. Like you could just you'd be able to spot her just maybe casually turning your head like 45 degrees to the left and seeing her.
It's such a good costume. The freaking sea pony kind of underwater monster costume with Rarity making a duck face. Oh gosh! And again, of course, the Rara chicken costume with Sweetie Belle as the egg. Apparently, she's secretly Scootaloo's mother. A real twist for the series there. Yeah, the ice cream shop there is really nice. It's really nicely designed there. Another new location for the series there. Yeah, that ending picture was kind of cute and funny at the same time, both covered in ice cream.
I don't know. They look kind of like almost like they were clowns almost.
Yeah,
it's simple. We kill the Batmare.
I saw. There's an image edit of that. It's so perfect. Yes, look at those 2 pigs in that picture. Let's see. Well, going on. We'll move on to the score, the episode score and backing music. So, no song this week. Let's see, but we got a little bit of score, not quite as much, since a lot of episodes like this where it's more, how do you say, it's more kind of character-based, character-driven episodes. A lot of times the score is a little lighter, but some nice cues and as well as recurring motifs that were used in it. So we'll start with this first one here, and this is when after the episode's opening, when Rarity is kind of going through the old pictures she has of her and Sweetie Belle and sort of reminiscing on that. It has this really, really nice, soft, kind of simple vibraphone melody here that happens there. And it has some strings that kind of transitions us to another cue at the end of it here. So let me find that. Adds a little bit of harpsichord in here as well for Rarity. And some very melodramatic strings as well. here's a little tiny bit of Rarity's melodramatic motif that we get a lot for her. Kind of slows down there at the end. So next we get to CMC Coming Through, which is the track that backs the CMC riding down the hill on the giant slab of stone. So this scene is accompanied by this new acoustic and electric guitar piece, which is very reminiscent instrumentation-wise of their previous themes, but still remains kind of like a fresh on its own, fresh sounding cue here. It's really short, but it's nice. From there, we're introduced to another new filly, Chip Cutter, who's they're trying to help uncover his special talent. So he kind of gets his own little motif here with some staccato woodwinds and strings as well. When he's working and chipping away at the rock face, then we get kind of this cue of frantic working music before returning to his motif at the end of the track. Bit of him getting his cutie mark there before we go back to his theme. From there, we go and get a little track for Zipperwill, as she's introduced in this episode. She brings her this kind of pizzicato motif as she enters the scene. Scootaloo tells her the CMC are going to be able to help her. We get the CMC's fanfare music, which we hear a lot for them in a lot of different contexts for the series. It was first heard in Season 3's One Bad Apple for them, and you'll hear that when Scootaloo talks. There's their cue there, their little motif. Okay, so going forward a little again, we get to the part where after Sweetie Belle and Rarity spend a little bit of time together, Rarity goes back and kind of follows up with Apple Bloom and Scootaloo with how things are going, and for both of them, with Ripley as well as Sweetie Belle, things are not going so great. So as Sweetie Belle speaks in this track here, we get a really short, emotional string and xylophone piece here. It's a really quick one, but I really love the sound of it, and it kind of encapsulates the mood of the scene pretty well. So from there, we get to the montage scene of Rarity and Sweetie Belle playing dress up, and of course, Sweetie Belle's not really into it. To accompany this short montage here, William Anderson brings back some of the older fashion show music. This particular track was used all the way back in Season 4's Rarity Takes Manhattan in the track Hotel Chic, and that's when Rarity was first showing off the Hotel Chic line to at the fashion show there, and the rest of the main six didn't show up because they were asleep. So that's the last where we last heard this track here. So about the same length as we heard it before, the slightly different ending onto it. So finally we get to the kind of final two tracks here. We get to You Don't Know Me at All, where Sweetie Belle sort of freaks out at Rarity when sort of the whole situation just kind of boils over for her. So kind of begins with this emotional piece, but then becomes very intense in the end to match Sweetie Belle's anger and Rarity's despair at the end of the scene as we go into the final commercial break. And from there, we get into the final and longest track from the episode, Growing Up. And this track encompasses the final resolution scene all the way up to the episode's conclusion. So pretty much that entire final act of the scene with Sweetie Belle sort of solving the problem with Ripley, and then Rarity and Sweetie Belle making up there. It's also composed of a couple different cues that we've heard before from the series as well that I'll point out. When Sweetie Belle's first confronting Zipperwell at the beginning, we get a nice short emotional cue there. As she explains the problem to her, she's then accompanied by a piano lesson motif. And this lesson motif we heard last in last season's Every Little Thing She Does, the Starlight episode there, near the end of the episode, and the track assignment's complete. Rarity then enters the scene and apologizes to Sweetie Belle. As she does this, we get this very emotional clarinet cue that we've heard before in the series. It was last used, also last season, in the episode No Second Chances, at the end of the episode there, called in the track A Second Chance. It's appeared a few other times in the series before that. Its first appearance was all the way back in Season 4's Maud Pie, and the track Maud Saves Pinky, right after Maud Saves Pinky from the Falling Rocks in that episode there. This particular cue here, version of the cue here, finishes with a nice big use of strings and French horn to kind of match the emotional impact of the scene. Rarity and Sweetie Belle then have a short kind of one-on-one talk after Zipperwell and the rest of the group kind of goes off with Ripley and plays with him, and we have like another very emotional piece here in this part. It's a glockenspiel and string track in terms of the instrumentation, and we last heard it in last season's episode Top Bolt, in the track Not a Natural, Too Afraid to Shine, near the I believe it was near the end of the episode, but not all the way at the end. It actually took me a while to find out where we first heard this, because I know we heard it before there, and we actually first heard this track all the way back in Season 3's episode Spike at Your Service, in the track It's Been an Honor Being Your Faithful Assistant. That's the part of the episode where Spike kind of goes to Twilight and says, I can't be your assistant anymore, I have a life debt to Applejack, and Twilight is kind of just, sure, yeah, whatever, just not even paying attention. So it was the same score that backed to that scene here. So here's that final track. We've heard this cue here before as well. That's another one that's made a lot of appearances in the show. And here we'll get to that piano lesson motif that was last used in every little thing she does. This is that emotional clarinet cue that we heard on No Second Prances, as well as Maud Pie. We had the French horn here at the end. Very nice and emotional cue, part of the track there. Now we'll get into the glockenspiel and string track here from Top Bolt and from Spike at Your Service. Kind of end with a nice, happy final chord here. To end off that kind of emotional part of the episode there. That's all the music, so a little bit less than some of the previous episodes, but some good content in there between all of those kind of character and dialogue scenes. A lot of the score was just kind of backing dialogue, which is more just kind of incidental score that usually backs that. So, what does everyone think of the episode's theme and the moral of the episode?
Oh, well, we said time changes everything and everyone. Only thing to keep from being left behind is to accept it and change with the times. Also, don't be a dick! Not really that,
Don't be a dick, I was late.
Yeah. Probably not that really, how can I say this, appropriate for that, but I can't help it. I just throw that in there.
And pretty much that. Just, people, specifically with this episode, kids grow up and their interests change, and you can't keep babying them. And I think that's something a lot of children deal with their parents as they sort of grow up, and they're kind of at that age where they're kind of in the middle of their life there, and they don't have the same interests, and their parents still try and play to those interests, and it kind of gets a little embarrassing and stuff. So I definitely I think it's definitely relatable probably to a lot of people, and definitely to a lot of parents as well in terms of the lesson of it. But again, I really liked the A and B plot, and I liked how they also related the same thing to like having a pet, and when the pet grows up, might be interested in doing different things. Pet puppy isn't going to necessarily be the same as a full-grown dog in terms of its interests. Or I know, like my cat, when he was young, he was always wanted to do nothing but play, and chase after strings and stuff like that, to the point where he would tire himself out. And of course, as he got older, of course, he was still interested in that, but not as much. And as everyone gets older, they become obviously less active. So I think it's something that a lot of people, especially kids that might have pets, can relate to and pull something from as they grow older, as both of them grow older. But yeah, and it's also kind of going off that, it's also a lot of, even with your interests changing, and maybe your little sister is growing up and her interests change, it doesn't mean that you can't still have good times together. If you're a parent and your daughter or son's interests are changing, you might not be able to do the same things with them, but it doesn't mean you can't do anything. It just might have to find new things to do that they want. So yeah, I like how they kind of went from the dog, obviously one having nothing to do with a chew toy in it, to when Rarity drops the stick out of her flower costume there, he obviously takes an interest in that, and it can wants to play with that now. So
yeah, move on to sticks, and then they'll be hunting down and mauling squirrels the next day.
Cats definitely become a lot more about me as they grow up. It's less that I'm a little kid and I want to play. It's more like, hey, I'm your cat, come bring me food and pet me. I am your master. Yeah, that's what I like about cats, though. So favorite parts of the episode? Any lingering concerns anyone has they want to mention?
Nothing that really comes to mind.
I guess kind of my favorite thing overall was just the how well done the A and B plot was done in it, and how that came together in the end. And it was just nice again seeing kind of character growth. Sort of like how in last week's episode Fluttershy leans in, how it wasn't like Fluttershy was gaining a lot of character development or anything in it, but it was a nice episode to kind of feature the amount of development that she's had as a character in the show, and turn that into a story, and really feature that in an episode. And it was kind of similar way in here, kind of showing how much Sweetie Belle and Rarity have grown in their relationship, and how much how Sweetie Belle is kind of changing in terms of as she grows up, as she matures, how her interests are changing, as well as showing how successful the CMC have been, and their sort of calling that they got in season 5 when they finally got their cutie marks. Clutty, that is the perfect distinction there between dogs and cats. It doesn't help that civilizations of the past have worshipped cats to no end. So, any overall feelings, final conclusions, final thoughts before we call it quits for today?
No, I don't have anything else to really say.
Yeah, I think we pretty much talked about it all. Like we mentioned at the beginning, it was definitely a lot more simple of an episode in terms of its story and plot. So it's a little quicker for us to go through the discussion of it, because there isn't anything incredibly deep here in terms of anything, or in the story, or the characters, or in terms of development for the characters. So, I think it was a pretty good episode overall. But no, we had shorter.
Really?
I think we had shorter for the one with Flurry Heart this season.
Oh yeah.
That one was pretty short. Again, just because it was a fun, hilarious episode. But I mean, in terms of actual content to discuss in it, other than kind of pointing out all the funny parts, it's, in terms of discussion, it's a little bit shorter. But But I think we hit upon everything that's kind of worth talking about in this episode here, for it at least. But yeah. So anyway, thank you all so much for participating in all of this today. We got let's see what else we got. So next week we have another new episode that we'll be watching on Discovery Family this weekend. Parental Guidance that premieres. We'll be watching that here and live chatting that this Saturday at 11:30 a.m. And we'll be discussing that back on Tuesday here on Triple E at 5 p.m. Eastern Daylight Time. So come and join us next week for our parental guidance discussion. Should have a lot to talk about in terms of that episode, if the description is anything to talk about. So, in addition, this weekend we'll also be revealing what we'll be doing our next CQ riffs on in another week and a half here. So make sure to stick around for that and see what shit we're going to be getting ourselves into next about that. So coming up, there is a Nintendo Direct, ARMS Direct that's happening right now. Unfortunately, it kind of overlapped with our Triple E, but we will be embedding that in a second. Once it's over and the kind of recording of it goes up, we'll be showing that here, so we can all kind of, if anyone's interested, we can watch that here before we get on with the rest of our stuff for tonight. So as soon as that's
hell yeah, looking forward to that.
Yep. So as soon as that's available for us to kind of rewatch once it ends and it's on YouTube to rewatch, we'll show that here. Probably, I'm not sure how long it's supposed to last. I know it's still going on now, so probably in another 15 or so minutes. We'll be doing that. I believe they're also supposed to have a new Splatoon 2 trailer as well as part of that. So stick around for that. That'll be coming up whenever that finishes, maybe another 15 minutes or so here. Besides that, thank you so much for joining us, everyone, and we'll see you next week for Parental Guidance. Bye-bye.
See ya, folks. Later.